Who maybe came in after we got started, and you're a visitor, I am not David Smith. David and his family are out taking some well-deserved family time. My name's Carl. My real occupation is I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I work in a mental health hospital. If you haven't seen me before and you sit in the front and you never look back, there's a good chance you haven't seen me before because I'm always sitting in the back and I usually have a phone in my hand because I'm usually on call, and if I have to leave, I don't want to make a big scene when I have to go out the door. But if you're hoping that my phone goes off, I'm not on call tonight and I took the day off, so you got to have to listen to the whole thing. Tonight, I'm gonna start telling a story about the you all like the Olympics? I'm gonna start talking about the Olympics. This is Matt Emmons. Who's ever heard of Matt Emmons before? Okay, so I got a story for you. Matt Emmons is a sharpshooter. He represented the U.S. in 2004 Olympics in Greece. He was shooting at the 50-meter targets. 50 meters, by the way, is 164 feet. So it's out there. And he is way ahead of everyone else shooting. All he needs, last shot of the day, all he needs is a mediocre shot. And he's going to win gold. So he gets ready, he lifts up his rifle, and he takes aim, he puts the crosshairs above the target and slowly brings it down till it's at the bullseye. He starts listening to his heart. He exhales, and he shoots between heartbeats. That's how good these guys are. He shoots between heartbeats, and he looks. Bullet goes exactly where he sent it. Oh, he's excited, and he turns around, and there's no score. And he's confused. He doesn't understand because he made the shot. The bullet went, he looked through the scope, he could see the hole. The bullet went exactly where he sent it. He made the shot. But he shot at the wrong target. He shot at the target next to him, or the lane over. Have you all ever done that? Y'all ever reach your target, and then the outcome's not what you thought it was going to be? I've done that in my life. Would you all pray with me, please? Heavenly Father, we just thank you for every heart that's in here tonight. And Father, we pray that whenever one of your servants gets up to speak, you speak the loudest and the clearest to that servant. Amen. So, we're in Acts 5. Now, for those of you who might not know this, when they were, for most of the books in the Bible, when they're writing, they didn't write in chapters. The chapters came later. People said, oh, this is a good break, and they put a chapter in here. This is a good break, and they put a chapter in here. So I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to start at the end of chapter 4 just to set this up. So I'm starting on Acts 4, verse 36. For instance, there was Joseph, the one the apostles nicknamed Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. He was from the tribe of Levi, and he came from the island of Cyprus. He sold a field he owned, and he brought the money to the apostles. And I'm moving on to chapter 5. But there was a certain man named Ananias, and his wife Sapphira sold some property. He brought part of the money to the apostles, claiming that it was the full amount. With his wife's consent, he kept the rest. Then Peter said, Ananias, why have you let Satan fill your heart? You lied to the Holy Spirit, and you kept some of the money for yourself. The property was yours to sell or not sell as you wish. And after selling it, the money was also yours to give away. How could you do a thing like this? You weren't lying to us, but to God. And as soon as Ananias heard these words, he fell to the floor and died. Everyone who heard about it was terrified. Then some men got up, wrapped him in a sheet, and took him out and buried him. So let me go through this. So the property is sold, and Ananias comes to the apostles and present the proceeds from the sale. Now, we don't know how Peter found out. Very likely it was some divine knowledge was given to him. Maybe someone was there when the sale was made. They knew what it was actually what, but somehow Peter knew. And so he starts basically by asking Ananias why he felt he had to lie. I mean, it was his property. It was his money. He could have been honest and said, well, I'm keeping some of it back, and everything would have been fine. So why did he lie? And he didn't even have to sell it to begin with. If he wanted to keep it, that was all within his rights. But Ananias was trying to impress people. In the end, they carried him out dead. So continuing on in Acts, about 3 hours later, his wife comes in, not knowing what happened. And Peter asked her, what was the price you and your husband received for the land? Was this the price you and your husband received for the land? Yes, she replied, that was the price. And Peter said, how could the two of you even think of conspiring to test the Holy Spirit of the Lord like this? The young men who buried your husband are just outside the door, and they will carry you out too. Instantly she fell to the floor and died. When the young men came in and saw that she was dead, they carried her out and buried her beside her husband. Great fear gripped the entire church and everyone else who had heard what had happened. So I'm trying to imagine this picture, and I imagine when she comes in, there's going to be a little bit of tension in the room, don't you think? I mean, there are going to be people who maybe were friends of her, and they're just heartbroken for her. Her husband just died. There's probably some other people who feel like, well, she's to blame too. I can't believe they did this. So there's probably lots of different emotions going around. And she might be wondering, my husband's not here. Where has he been for 3 hours? As she comes through the door. And Peter gives Sapphira a way out. Did you sell the property for this much? And she could have come clean and all would have been good. However, she maintains the lie. And she dies too. Now, because their deaths are so dramatic, it's easy to think of Ananias and Sapphira as terrible, evil, corrupt people. But I wonder if they're really so different. I mean, it's entirely possible they were some of the people that received the Holy Spirit 2 chapters ago. It's possible that they had skills and gifts that were much admired by the people around them. And it's possible that when they sold the land, they had every intention that they were going to give all the money, but then they started thinking about their retirement. So what went wrong? Their target shifted. What was their aim? Anybody? What were they aiming at? They were aiming at recognition. They wanted people to see them in a certain light. They didn't have to sell the field at all, or they could have sold it and kept some of the money and just said that's what they were doing, or sold it and said they were keeping, or sold it and kept all the money. I did a later note, my handwritten note, and I can't read what I wrote. There were others who had sold property and they gave all. And so they didn't want to give all. We don't know why. They didn't want to give all, but they wanted everyone to think they did, didn't they? And they died to be recognized. Their aim was not kingdom building, but their aim was looking like a good Christian. And before we talk about Peter and John, I want to talk about another group, the Jewish religious leaders. Let's look at what they were doing. So starting at verse 17, it says, the high priest and his officials were Sadducees, and they were filled with what? So what was going on in them? What were they filled with? Jealousy. And the word jealousy here doesn't really mean envy. It doesn't mean they wanted what Peter and John had. What it means is they were indignant. They were afraid that they were going to lose some stuff. So there's a couple of different things that are adding up to this. First of all, John and Peter were getting large crowds. Now, the Sadducees already had an image problem with the people. The people tended to, there are two groups in the religious council at the time. There's the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they make up what they call the Sanhedrin. The Sadducees, the people don't like them so much. They're sort of apart. They tend to be more affluent. They didn't really work with the people too much. So the people tended to lean towards the Pharisees. I know. Up to this point, the Pharisees seem like the bad guys in the Bible usually, and we'll see that they are. But the Sadducees and the Pharisees are always butting heads, and you have this large crowd following James and John, and the more people following James and John, that's less people that was going to follow the Sadducees. And going back to what I was saying about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, there's some big philosophical differences between these two. And one of the big differences, the Sadducees do not believe in an afterlife, so therefore they don't believe in resurrection. What are Peter and John preaching? They're preaching resurrection of Jesus Christ. So guess what? They're losing influence, they're losing political power, and afraid that political power is going to go to the Pharisees. And then what else are Peter and John doing? All right, so Peter and John, they're healing. Right, they're following, that it's true, they're following King. But one of the other things that they're saying. Yeah. And then what are the Sadducees are saying? In verse 28, it says, "We gave you strict orders never again to teach in this man's name," he said. "Instead, you have filled all Jerusalem with your teaching about him, and you want to make us responsible for their death." So you get the picture? All of a sudden, everyone's following Peter and John, and so the Sadducees want to distance themselves from Jesus' crucifixion. And I'm sure in their own mind, they're saying, well, we didn't kill him. That was Pontius Pilate. That was the Romans. And they minimize their part in that. So they were the religious elite in the Jewish faith at that time. Were they aiming at furthering God's kingdom? No. What were they aiming at? I can't hear, I'm sorry. Right, they're furthering their own kingdom. They want to keep the status quo. The Sadducees have it in with the Romans. They want to keep that. The Sadducees want to protect their authority, and they want to protect their power. So let's compare that to what Peter and John are aiming at. So Peter and John, they're going around and they're healing people, and they're telling people about Jesus, but they get arrested again. Remember, they got arrested in the last chapter, and they were let go because the Sanhedrin didn't know what to do with them. So this is the second time they're arrested, but it's too late in the day, so they can't have a trial, so they put them in jail. Great jailbreak. If you ever want to have a jailbreak, have an angel do it for you. Angel comes in and lets them out. So the next morning, what do? They go back to the synagogue and they start telling people about Jesus again. They don't hide. They don't whisper. They preach. I got to tell you, I'm not sure that's my aim. If I'm in this situation, there's a part of me that's like, well, I might be a little sneaky about this. I might want to try to do this a different way. But their aim is on furthering God's kingdom. And they go right back to the synagogue. So they're rearrested and they're taken to the Jewish court again. The high priest is yelling at them, "We gave you strict orders to stop preaching." Now, these are the same people who did what? They sent Jesus to the Romans to be crucified. And Peter and John are standing in front of them. I might be trying to soften things up. My aim might be to save my own skin, but not Peter and John. What does Peter say here? Yes. But Peter and the apostles reply, we must obey God rather than men. I don't care that you're the ruling authority in the Jewish religion. I'm going to obey God. Wow. Okay. And I want to make a small detour in my message tonight. I want to make one point to decide here. Who is in this room? We have Peter, John, the apostles, and the Sanhedrin. Who is educated in Scripture? The Sanhedrin. Who has spiritual knowledge? Peter, John, and the apostles. So here's my point. For spiritual knowledge, our first step in spiritual knowledge is obedience. Now, I'm not one of these people who think you need to leave your brain at the door when you come to church. But if you want to have spiritual knowledge, you're never going to have the whole picture. You're not going to have the whole data until you are obedient. All right, back to our story. What is the aim of Peter and John? Obey God. Yeah, they are kingdom building. I don't care what you're hitting me with. I'm going to work on building the kingdom. That is my aim. I'm sorry. By the way, I'm deaf and my hearing aids are having a little bit of trouble right now. They're being witnesses. So they are kingdom building, and it's especially strong here. And we'll talk about this a little bit with the 12 disciples. Well, 11 of them that were there, because they were witnesses to the life of Christ. So my question tonight is, well, let me back up one. And I see this happens a lot with people who are in different kinds of missions for church or doing different things for church. When things go wrong and they're whipped, what do they say? Oh, God must not meant for me to do this. But we know from Peter and John, they are whipped. And they're like, man, that's not stopping us. So don't get in the habit of thinking because you're doing God's work and something goes wrong and things are getting painful for you or tough for you that you're not doing God's work. That's not saying God saying, oh, you did it wrong. That's the world fighting you. So here's my question tonight. What are you aiming at? See, we have a tendency sometimes to look at the decline of church in today's culture, and we want to blame Hollywood, or we want to blame a political party, or whoever. But some of the blame comes with the way the church has been aiming over the centuries. I think many churches today have lost their aim. They're shooting down the wrong lane. The battle they are fighting might be honorable. It might be worthy, but if it's not the fight God has asked them to fight, it is the wrong battle. Say it again. If it's not the fight God has asked them to fight, it is the wrong battle. Every time the church wins the wrong battle, we lose ground in the war. You see, Satan is happy for you to fight the wrong battle. He is happy for you to feel righteous in the cause that distracts you from the mission God actually gave you. He is happy that you feel righteous in the cause that distracts you from the mission he gave you. There are worthy fights that might not be your fight. We'll see in the next chapter, a little grumbling starts in the early church because some of the Greek widows are not getting their share of food and they're going hungry. Is this a fight worth having? Yeah. Is this something God thinks is important? Yes. But here's what happened. This is not the mission of the 12 disciples. God has another plan, so they elect other leaders to take care of the situation, to fix the situation, because God has a different team to take care of this, and he has a different mission for the 12 disciples. Worthy mission, but it wasn't their mission. Does it make sense? God had a different team for that. You see, we do this sometimes. We sometimes see something wrong in the world, and we crusade against it. And we use human strategies, and we don't wait for God's instruction. We don't wait for God's order. Even the word crusade is an example of Christians missing the point. But aiming at the wrong thing can also happen in our personal battles. John Ortberg talks about shadow missions. Now, a shadow mission is something that looks like a mission for you, but it's an imposter. It's a shadow mission. It might be an authentic mission that got off the rails a little bit. It's often in imperceptible ways. Part of what makes a shadow mission so tempting is that it's usually closely related to our gifts and our passions. See, it's not 180 degrees. It's just 5 or 10 degrees off the mission that God has for you. John Ortberg puts it this way. Shadow missions are almost always slight variations of authentic missions. That's what makes them so seductive. Rarely is somebody's shadow mission 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Our shadow missions generally involve the gifts and passions that have been hardwired into us. And we are just tempted to misuse them ever so slightly. Our shadow mission leads us 5 or 10 degrees off the true path in the directions of selflessness, of comfort, of arrogance. But those few degrees, over time, is a difference between light and shadow. It's likely that your shadow mission is a mission that you have to fight every day. I'd like to tell you that I win my fight every day, but I'd be lying. The truth is, there are seasons in my life when I followed my shadow mission rather than the mission God had for me. You see, I got a pride problem. Oh, it's a subtle thing. I don't walk around pointing my thumbs at myself all the time, but I got a pride problem. At a former church I was at, I probably started off on God's mission for me, but somewhere along the line, I slowly moved my aim, just a degree or two, but I was no longer aiming at what God had for me. See, I was aiming at being the go-to guy. At one point, I was lay leader, which automatically put me in 4 meetings a month. I taught a class. I was executive producer. I ran sound or lights or projection or filmed or whatever needed to be done that Sunday. See, when it all started, I'd like to be in the go-to guy. So I kept piling things on. But here is the fruit of all of that. I seldom got to actually worship. Oh, I was there when worship was happening, but it wasn't happening for me. I was always looking for or listening for what needed to be fixed, what needed to be tweaked, what needed to be taken care of. My brain was busy evaluating and critiquing instead of worshiping. Even when I realized I had a problem and I tried to back away, it didn't work. Because after all, for all intents and purposes, I had trained everybody that I was a go-to guy. They started coming to me even when I just wanted to sit and worship. I started to become resentful. It also meant I spent less time with my wife. And it probably also meant there was somebody there in that congregation that was supposed to be doing some of the things that I was doing, but I was in the way. I'm doing good things for the wrong reason, and I'm messing up God's plan. It was so bad that when Elaine and I met with David and Jen about attending here, one thing I said was, I need a break from doing things. I was aiming at the wrong thing, and it hurt me, it hurt my wife. In the long run, it even hurt the church I was supposedly working to help. So here are some differences between your real mission and your shadow mission. A shadow mission comes from, so a real mission comes from freedom and love. We are loving on others. A shadow mission comes from insecurity. It comes from guilt. A real mission is about God and others. You know who the shadow mission is about? Me. In a real mission, you are ready to serve. In a shadow mission, things start to lead towards resentment. In a real mission, you feel closer to God when you're doing these things. In a shadow mission, you start to feel distant from God. What I've noticed is that we can have different shadow missions in different parts of our lives. And there's one shadow mission that seems very common in churchgoers. That takes us back to Ananias and Sapphira. Very often, we want to control our image. When I was in college a long time ago, I took a class in social psychology, and one of the things they talked about was impression management and how we manage how people look at us. We manage how people think of us. And Christians, we fall into that a lot. When I was studying for this, I actually got an article talking about counterfeit goods. And there have always been counterfeit goods. But in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been an explosion of counterfeit goods. That is things that look like the real thing but aren't. It looks like, what's the big watch name? Rolex. It looks like Rolex, but it's not a Rolex. It's a Rolex or something like that. Or maybe maybe you're supposed to think it's the real thing. Instead of a Louis Vuitton purse, it's a knockoff. And now they got to the point where they'll make the symbol a little bit different, so it looks like it, but people know it's not the real thing. And it's not the real thing. It doesn't have the same kind of stitching. It doesn't have the same kind of quality. It doesn't have the same kind of materials built into it. But people buy it. They buy it because they want to be part of the image. They know it's not the real thing, but they want to look like it is. Do Christians ever do that? It's not about our quality, it's about how we look. So that is a shadow mission that I think we Christians especially have to be careful of. And maybe some of you are sitting here and you're thinking, gosh, I've been aiming at the wrong target. And that's okay. Because there's more to the story of Matt Emmons. You see the medals? He went on to win gold in other Olympics. He went on to win world championships. You know how he did it? He adjusted his aim. So what are you aiming at? God has something for you to do, something that will likely have ripples beyond what you will ever know, something that is kingdom building. And here's the thing, you won't just need your gifts to accomplish it. You're going to need God and a willingness to aim at the difficult target. But anything less, you will be diminished and you won't be what you could be. Thank you.